What would you do if the very mother who once threw you into the streets pregnant, now crawled on her knees, begging for your forgiveness to save her life? Would you walk away, or forgive? Zara was only 19, the pride of her mother, Mama Grace. She was beautiful, elegant, and intelligent. In their upper-class neighborhood in Lagos, everyone admired her. Mama Grace, a woman obsessed with status and appearances, her late husband had left her a few businesses, but without proper supervision things came crushing down. On the outside, they were doing good, but Mama Grace knew it was just a matter of time. She often bragged in church about her daughter's future, claiming that Zara would one day marry into a wealthy family, and that was her strategy. But Zara's heart had already chosen another path. She was in love with Jamal, a 23-year-old mechanic who worked at a small roadside workshop near their estate. Jamal was hard-working, respectful, and had the kind of smile that lit up even the darkest days. But to Mama Grace, none of that mattered. What she saw was his torn overalls, greasy hands, and the fact that his parents lived in a crowded one-room apartment in the mainland. To her, Jamal was simply beneath her daughter. At first, Zara tried to keep her relationship with Jamal a secret. She would sneak out after lectures, pretending to visit her friends, only to run off to Jamal's workshop. He would wipe the sweat from his forehead, drop his tools, and welcome her with the widest grin. They would sit under the mango tree near the workshop, eating roasted corn and groundnuts while talking about life, dreams, and their future together. Jamal often said, "Zara, one day I'll open my own garage. I don't care how long it takes, I'll make something of myself, for us." And Zara believed him. To her, Jamal's dreams were worth more than any rich man's money. But word travels fast in Lagos, and soon Mama Grace heard whispers from neighbors. One evening, as Zara walked in smiling, Mama Grace was waiting. "Zara," she asked sharply, "where have you been?" Zara hesitated, but Mama Grace's eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me. I heard you've been sneaking around with that mechanic boy." Zara swallowed hard. "Mama, his name is Jamal. And he's not just a mechanic, he's a good man. He loves me, and I love him." Mama Grace's face darkened with fury. "Love? Love does not put food on the table. Love will not pay your bills or buy you respect in this society. You are my only hope, Zara. You will marry into wealth, not into poverty. Do you want to disgrace this family?" But Zara stood firm. "Mama, I don't care about money. Jamal makes me happy. Isn't that what matters?" That was the first time Zara saw her mother's true rage. Mama Grace raised her hand as though to slap her but stopped halfway. Instead, she hissed loudly and stormed out of the room, muttering, "You will regret this nonsense." From that day, the house became a battlefield. Mama Grace would scold Zara at every opportunity, warning her about throwing away her future. Zara's younger sister, Ifeoma, watched quietly, too afraid to interfere. The once peaceful home was now filled with tension, all because of Zara's forbidden love. Weeks passed, and one fateful evening, Zara returned home from Jamal's workshop feeling dizzy. She tried to shake it off, but during dinner, she suddenly collapsed. Panic filled the house as Mama Grace and Ifeoma rushed her to the hospital. The next morning, the doctor walked in with the test results. He looked at Zara, then at Mama Grace, and said gently, "Congratulations. She's pregnant." The silence in the room was heavy. Mama Grace's face froze, her mouth hanging open. Zara, still weak, whispered, "Mama, it's Jamal's." That was the final straw. Mama Grace exploded with anger. "Pregnant? For that mechanic? Zara, you have destroyed me. You have shamed me before the whole world. How dare you bring disgrace to this family?" Zara tried to speak, tears running down her cheeks. "Mama, please, I love him. I didn't plan for this, but—" "Shut your mouth!" Mama Grace shouted, her voice echoing through the hospital walls. "You think love will raise a child? You think love will pay hospital bills? You useless, stubborn girl." Back at home that night, Mama Grace's anger only grew. She paced the living room, her eyes wild with fury. Zara sat quietly, her heart pounding, clutching her stomach protectively. Then suddenly, Mama Grace stormed into Zara's room. She yanked the suitcase from under the bed, throwing Zara's clothes inside without care. "You want to be with Jamal? Fine. Go to him. Go and live in poverty. Since you've chosen shame, you will live with shame." Zara begged, falling to her knees. "Mama, please, don't do this. I need you. I'm scared." But Mama Grace's heart was hardened. She dragged the suitcase to the door, opened it wide, and pushed Zara out into the dark Lagos night. Neighbors peeked from their windows as Mama Grace shouted, "Leave this house and never come back. You are no longer my daughter." With tears streaming down her face, Zara picked up her suitcase and slowly walked away, her mind torn between fear and love. She had lost her family, but in her heart, she knew she still had Jamal. And so, in the middle of the night, Zara made her way to Jamal's little workshop, clutching her suitcase and holding on to the only hope she had left. The night Zara left her mother's house was the longest night of her life. With her suitcase dragging behind her, tears streaming down her cheeks, and the weight of her unborn child inside her, she finally arrived at Jamal's workshop. By then, the workshop was quiet, the machines silent, and Jamal was asleep on a wooden bench, exhausted from the day's work. When he heard Zara call his name, he sat up in shock. "Zara? What are you doing here at this hour? And why do you have your bag?" Zara's voice cracked as she whispered, "Mama kicked me out. She said I've disgraced her. Jamal, I have nowhere else to go." Jamal looked at her, then at the small suitcase, then at the tears in her eyes. He stepped forward, pulled her into his arms, and said softly, "Don't cry, Zara. You are not alone. I may not have much, but I have you. And I promise, I'll never let you suffer." That night, Jamal led her to his small one-room apartment in the mainland, far from the luxury Zara was used to. The room was hot and crowded with old furniture. A single mattress lay on the floor, and the paint on the walls was peeling. The tiny window barely let in air. For Zara, who had grown up sleeping in an air-conditioned room with silk sheets, this was a shock. But when she looked at Jamal, she forced a smile. Love, she told herself, would make it worth it. Life in the shadows began. Days turned into weeks, and Zara quickly realized that love alone could not put food on the table. Jamal worked tirelessly at the workshop, fixing cars under the scorching Lagos sun, while Zara stayed home, trying to adjust to her new life. Some days they had rice, other days they ate only bread and pure water. And yet, through it all, Zara remained determined. She told Jamal, "Don't worry about me. I'll manage. As long as we're together, I can endure anything." But not everyone admired Zara's courage. The neighbors whispered and laughed behind her back. Some would say loudly, "So this is the rich girl who thought love would feed her. Look at her now, carrying a poor man's baby in a poor man's house." Others mocked Jamal, calling him the mechanic who trapped an Ajibo girl. It stung, but Zara refused to let their words break her. She held her head high, even when she went to fetch water from the communal tap, something she had never done before. People would stare, but Zara would remind herself, "I chose this life. I chose love." Meanwhile, Mama Grace was busy rewriting the story. At church, she stood with her head high, telling anyone who asked that Zara had run off in shame. She pretended to be the victim, sighing dramatically as she told her fellow church women, "I don't know what came over that girl. She disobeyed me, and now she's lost. God forbid I associate with such disgrace." The church members shook their heads and pitied Mama Grace, not knowing the real story. Back in Jamal's world, things went from bad to worse. Zara's belly grew, and with it, the need for better food and regular checkups. Jamal worked even harder, sometimes fixing cars late into the night. He would return home with grease all over his hands, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, but he never stopped smiling at Zara. "Just hold on a little longer," he would say. When the baby comes, things will be better. But tragedy struck without warning. One afternoon, while Zara was resting, Jamal rushed in, his face pale. "Zara," he said, his voice shaking, "the workshop, it's gone. There was a fire. Everything burned down." Zara sat up in shock. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "I mean everything is finished," Jamal replied, sinking to the floor. "The tools, the cars, the garage. The owner says he can't rebuild. He has no money. That means I have no job." The words hit Zara like thunder. No job meant no income. No income meant hunger. She felt her chest tighten, tears filling her eyes. She clutched her belly and whispered, "What will we do now, Jamal? How will we survive?" Jamal crawled over to her, taking her hands in his. His own eyes were filled with fear, but his voice was calm. "Zara, listen to me. Don't cry. We will survive. I don't know how yet, but I promise I won't let you and the baby suffer. I'll find another way." But as the days went on, things became harder. Jamal searched desperately for work, but no one was hiring. The little savings he had disappeared quickly, and there were nights when they went to bed hungry. Zara would sometimes break down in tears, holding her belly, terrified of what the future held. Just when things seemed hopeless, help came from an unexpected place. One evening, Zara's childhood friend, Ada, appeared at their door. Ada had heard the rumors and wanted to see for herself. When she saw Zara's swollen belly and the small, struggling home, tears filled her eyes. "Oh, Zara," she whispered, hugging her friend tightly. "Look at what you're going through." Zara broke down and cried in Ada's arms, something she hadn't allowed herself to do in weeks. Ada began visiting regularly, bringing food, baby clothes, and even helping Zara get medical checkups. Whenever Jamal was away, Ada stayed with her, making sure she ate well. But Ada's kindness had to remain a secret. If Mama Grace ever found out, she would cut ties with Ada too. So Ada pretended to know nothing whenever she saw Mama Grace at church, while secretly supporting her best friend. Despite all the suffering, Zara held on. Each night, she whispered to her unborn child, "We will survive. Mama loves you. Papa loves you. We will survive." And though Jamal's hands were empty, his heart remained full of determination. He worked odd jobs, carried loads at the market, and even washed cars on the street, just to make sure Zara had something to eat. Their love was being tested like fire tests gold. And though the world mocked them, and Mama Grace tried to erase Zara from memory, the young couple refused to give up. But fate was not done with them yet. The hardest trials were still to come. The fire that destroyed the workshop left Zara and Jamal with nothing. The place that had been Jamal's only source of income was gone in a single night. The owner could not rebuild, and Jamal was dismissed with nothing but apologies. The small savings they had quickly dried up, and the days that followed became a test of endurance. But Jamal was not the kind of man to sit and pity himself. He told Zara, "I may have lost my job, but I haven't lost my hands. These hands will still provide for you and our child. I will find another way." And so he began hustling on the streets of Lagos. Every morning, before the sun rose, Jamal left their small room in search of work. Some days he washed cars for busy bankers in Victoria Island. Other days he repaired okadas and bicycles for neighbors. When there was no repair work, he carried loads in the market, sweating under the hot sun, just to earn a few naira. Zara, heavily pregnant, watched him return home late each night with aching muscles and blistered palms. Yet he always wore the same smile, always saying, "Don't worry, Zara. Better days are coming." His hope was like fuel that kept her going. But life in Lagos was harsh. There were days they went to bed with only Gary soaked in water, their stomachs rumbling. Zara sometimes cried quietly in the night, but when Jamal noticed, he would hold her and whisper, "This is only a season. I will not let our child be born into suffering." Then came the day that changed everything. One morning, on his way to look for work, Jamal saw a convoy of sleek cars parked by the roadside. One of them, a black SUV, was smoking from under the bonnet. The driver and some men in suits were gathered around, confused and frustrated. Jamal, carrying only his small toolbox, approached carefully. "Good morning, sir. I'm a mechanic. Can I take a look?" At first, the driver dismissed him, but then a tall, wealthy-looking man stepped out of the car. His presence was commanding, his agbada flowing as he spoke. This was Chief Oladipo, a respected businessman in Lagos. He looked at Jamal for a moment and said, "Young man, if you can fix this car in 30 minutes, I'll pay you double." Without hesitation, Jamal rolled up his sleeves, opened the bonnet, and got to work. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he tightened, adjusted, and replaced a few parts using only the simple tools he carried. In less than 20 minutes, the car roared back to life. Chief Oladipo's eyes widened in surprise. "Impressive. Very impressive. What did you say your name was?" "Jamal, sir," he replied, wiping the grease from his hands. From that moment, everything began to change. Chief Oladipo hired Jamal to service his company's vehicles. Word spread quickly among other wealthy businessmen, and soon Jamal was being called to different offices and estates to repair cars. His honesty and skill made him stand out. Clients trusted him, and slowly, money began to flow in. With the little he earned, Jamal rented a small shop. It was nothing fancy, just a dusty garage with a tin roof, but to him and Zara, it was the beginning of their dream. Zara supported him, bringing him food while he worked long hours. She encouraged him when he doubted himself, reminding him, "You are more than a mechanic. This is just the beginning." Months later, Zara gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The cries of their child filled their small room, and Jamal, holding the baby in his arms, whispered with tears in his eyes, "I promise you, my son, you will never know the kind of hunger we faced. You will grow in a better world." The birth of his child became Jamal's greatest motivation. He poured his heart into the business. He hired 2 young apprentices, boys from the street who, like him, had nothing but determination. Together they worked tirelessly, fixing cars, learning, and growing. Within a year, the small shop that everyone ignored became the busiest garage in the area. But Jamal was not satisfied. He dreamed bigger. He began saving and learning about car sales. With guidance from Chief Oladipo and other contacts, Jamal expanded into importing used cars from abroad. What started as repairing second-hand engines soon became selling cars, then importing them in bulk. The transformation was unbelievable. The same Jamal who once carried loads at the market now stood proudly as the owner of a dealership. The boy who had been mocked as a poor mechanic now employed dozens of young men, giving them salaries and hope. Zara, once laughed at for choosing love over sense, was now admired by those same neighbors. They whispered, "Look at her today. She followed her heart, and now she's reaping the rewards." Years passed, and Jamal's name became respected in Lagos. He opened multiple branches, his business expanding into shipping cars, importing spare parts, and even selling luxury vehicles. He and Zara moved into a beautiful home, not as gifts from anyone, but as the fruit of their own hard work. The mechanic that society rejected had risen from the ashes, and by his side was the woman who never stopped believing in him. Together, they proved that true love, patience, and determination could build an empire out of nothing. But while their lives blossomed, someone else's world was about to fall apart, Mama Grace's. And fate was preparing the perfect way for tables to turn. As Jamal's star was rising, Mama Grace's world began to crumble like a weak wall under heavy rain. For years, she had walked with her head held high, boasting of her daughter Ifeoma's beauty and the wealthy men who courted her. She never missed an opportunity to remind others that Zara had married a poor mechanic, while Ifeoma had secured a rich fiancé, a rising politician with connections in Abuja. People in the community had admired her, calling her Mama Ifeoma, the Blessed Mother. But blessings built on pride rarely last. One morning, shocking news spread across Lagos. Ifeoma's fiancé was caught in a political scandal. Accusations of corruption, money laundering, and betrayal filled the headlines. Pictures of him being dragged by EFCC officers were everywhere. By evening, television stations confirmed it, his assets were frozen, and he was barred from traveling abroad. The engagement that Mama Grace had bragged about so proudly collapsed overnight. Ifeoma wept bitterly, tearing off the expensive ring he had given her. Her dreams of becoming Her Excellency were reduced to dust. And as quickly as they had come, the wealthy friends who once surrounded Mama Grace disappeared. At first, Mama Grace tried to act strong. "It's just a small storm," she told neighbors. "My daughter will find someone even richer." But inside, her heart pounded with fear. She could feel the whispers around her, see the smirks on the faces of women she had mocked in the past. Then disaster struck. One evening, as she cooked in her kitchen, Mama Grace collapsed. Her chest tightened, and her breathing became heavy. Ifeoma screamed for help, and neighbors rushed her to the hospital. The doctors delivered the news: Mama Grace had developed a serious heart condition. She needed urgent surgery, and the cost was staggering, millions of naira that Mama Grace did not have. For the first time in her life, Mama Grace felt helpless. The friends she had entertained with lavish meals vanished. The church members who once clapped when she testified about her daughter's glorious future now avoided her. Some even mocked her openly, whispering, "Didn't she call Zara useless? Look at her now, useless is better than this." Ifeoma, pampered all her life, could not cope. She had never worked a day, never cooked for herself, never washed her own clothes. With her fiancé gone and her mother bedridden, she suddenly faced reality. She begged for money, cried to old friends, and even tried to reach out to her disgraced fiancé, but doors kept slamming in her face. For weeks, Mama Grace suffered in silence, lying on her bed, watching her life fall apart. She remembered the days she mocked Zara. She remembered how she laughed when Zara married Jamal, calling him that grease-stained mechanic. And now, the same mechanic had built an empire. People whispered about his success everywhere: his car dealerships, his shipping business, the young men he employed. Each time Mama Grace heard his name, her heart burned with shame. The man she had despised had risen, while she and her beloved Ifeoma were drowning in misery. One night, as rain poured outside, Mama Grace sat up on her sickbed and wept bitterly. Her voice cracked as she prayed, "God, forgive me. I threw away the daughter who truly loved me. I chose pride over love. And now, I have nothing." Ifeoma, sitting by the bed, was restless. "Mama, what do we do? You need this surgery, or you'll..." Her voice broke. She could not finish the sentence. Mama Grace wiped her tears slowly. For the first time in many years, she whispered the name she had buried deep in her heart. "Zara." Ifeoma frowned. "Zara? Mama, after all you did to her? You think she will help us?" "She is my daughter," Mama Grace said weakly. "And Jamal, that boy, no, that man, he is no longer the poor mechanic I mocked. He is a great man now. Maybe, just maybe, he will have mercy." Days later, news of Jamal's success reached Mama Grace's ears more clearly. She heard how he imported cars, how people traveled from other states just to buy from him, how his name had become respected in Lagos. The shame was unbearable. To think that the man she once called useless was now her only hope of survival. Her pride fought against her. She tossed and turned in her bed, torn between shame and desperation. But the pain in her chest grew worse, and she knew time was running out. Finally, swallowing her pride, Mama Grace made a decision. She would go to Jamal and Zara. The sun was setting over Lagos when Mama Grace, frail and weak, made her way slowly into Jamal's massive car dealership. The glass doors reflected her tired figure. She was no longer the proud, intimidating woman who once commanded respect at church gatherings. Instead, she was a shadow of herself, her shoulders hunched, her steps shaky, and her eyes filled with desperation. Inside, Zara stood elegantly by Jamal's side, holding their little boy. She looked radiant, dressed modestly yet with the quiet grace of a woman who had endured suffering and triumphed over it. The staff greeted her with respect, customers smiled at her warmly, and Jamal's presence filled the room like that of a man who had built his empire from the ground up. The moment Mama Grace's eyes fell on them, her body trembled. Her pride crumbled. She sank to her knees right there in the dealership, not minding who was watching. "Zara, my daughter," her voice cracked, echoing with years of guilt. "Forgive me. I was blind. I let pride destroy us. Please, don't let me die like this." The room fell silent. Customers stopped whispering, staff froze in shock. Zara's heart pounded. Memories rushed back, the night she had been dragged out of her own home, the sound of her mother's angry voice, the cold darkness as she clutched her suitcase in the street. Her first instinct was to turn away. Tears welled in her eyes. "Mama, do you remember that night? Do you remember how you threw me out like garbage? Pregnant, scared, and with nowhere to go." Her voice shook with pain. "I begged you, but you slammed the door in my face." Mama Grace's lips quivered as tears streamed down. "I remember," she whispered. "And every day since then has been torment. My daughter, I have no excuses. Pride blinded me. I thought wealth would save us, but now, look at me. I have nothing. I have lost everything." Zara's little boy tugged at her dress, staring curiously at the grandmother he had never met. Jamal, who had been quietly watching, stepped forward. He placed a steady hand on Zara's shoulder and said softly, "Forgiveness is greater than revenge. You have carried this pain long enough, Zara. Let it end here." Zara looked into Jamal's eyes. His calm strength reminded her of the countless nights he had worked tirelessly just to put food on their table, of the love he had shown her when the whole world mocked her. Slowly, she nodded, though her tears kept falling. They paid for Mama Grace's surgery, saving her life. It was not easy. Every time Zara saw her mother lying weak in the hospital bed, she felt the weight of her past wounds. But day by day, her heart began to heal. She would sit by her mother's bedside, reading to her, while Jamal often brought fresh food and medicine. One evening, during her recovery, Mama Grace broke down completely. Her voice was low and heavy as she confessed a secret she had carried for years. "Zara, I need to tell you something. I too was once in your shoes. My parents rejected me when I married your father. He was a poor teacher, and they said I had brought shame to the family. I swore to myself I would never suffer poverty again. That fear consumed me, and in trying to avoid their mistakes, I repeated them, only worse. I rejected you the way I was rejected." Zara gasped, her heart aching at the irony. "Mama, so you punished me for the pain you carried?" Mama Grace nodded weakly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Yes, my daughter. I became the very thing I hated. I was so blinded by fear and pride that I forgot love. I forgot family." Silence filled the room. Jamal sighed, holding Zara's hand. Finally, Zara leaned closer to her mother and whispered, "Mama, we can't change the past, but we can heal the future." From then on, Mama Grace was never the same. She became a humbler woman. No longer the arrogant church matron who bragged about her daughters, she now lived quietly with Zara and Jamal, helping to raise her grandson. She spent her days cooking, singing hymns softly, and often sitting outside to watch children play, her face softened by gratitude and wisdom. Jamal continued to grow his business, expanding beyond Lagos into Abuja and even into neighboring countries. His dealerships flourished, and soon, he was importing luxury cars and even shipping them abroad. Yet, despite his success, he remained humble. He never forgot where he came from, the poor mechanic mocked by neighbors. And Zara, once mocked, rejected, and left with nothing, was now admired by everyone. People who had once whispered behind her back now pointed at her with respect. They did not only admire her as Jamal's wife, but as the strong woman who chose love over pride, who endured suffering and still found the courage to forgive. At family gatherings, Mama Grace would often look around with tears in her eyes. She would hold Zara's hand tightly and whisper, "You taught me that pride destroys, but love builds. You are my blessing, Zara. You saved me." If you like this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Danfo Diaries for more. Thanks for watching and catch you in the next video.